just like make it a
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to episode 3 of Bullpen Sessions. I am Jason. I am back and super excited to welcome Nick Arno from Rounding Third. I mean, there is no better show on social media for baseball fans than Rounding Third. And Nick is definitely the brainchild of that show, right, Nick? I mean, it's all yours, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have my co-host Harrison. I'm the pitcher. I like to say I like to lob up the softballs and let Harrison crank them out of the park. And
Right.
then I add my 2 cents and we move on.
Right, Harrison. Who's that? No, look, you guys got to follow Rounding Third on Facebook. Nick Arno and Harrison Smith do a fantastic job. It's the best baseball show on social media. Just don't tell Rob and Chris from NYMLB Talk. Rounding Third, just great stuff for baseball fans. You got to check it out on Facebook. So follow those guys. And Nick, anything you want to tell them as far as how to follow you guys? I know you're on Facebook. Anything else?
Yeah, we're on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. We're on all the platforms. Patreon. I mean, you name it, that's where we are. We are just a fan community. Like our show, we introduce the comments just like they're sitting with us in the room talking baseball. So like they are just as much as part of the show as Harrison and I are. So, and that's what we love. That's what we love, the interactions with everybody. So yeah, just find us there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The best thing about you guys' show is you do include the fans. You get a lot of feedback, a lot of comments, just a lot of fun for baseball fans. And look, you guys are going to be super important next year when there's no baseball. So tune in to Rounding Third, and it'll get your baseball fixed no matter what happens with the real world baseball. Also, give us a look on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern on Clearing the Bases, which Nick's the host of. Nick, you host our show and do a great job, and we're just a bunch of fans talking baseball, man. We're not trying to pretend like we know more than anybody else, but we have a lot of fun doing that show, and it's live on X. You can catch it on NYMLB Talks feed. You can I assume you guys stream it on your feed as well, correct?
Yeah, we do most weeks, yeah, unless I forget to, but yes.
Same. Yes. Same. You can catch it on our feed on Bullpen Sessions as well when I remember to hit the button. So give us a shout. Look out. Make a comment. Talk ball with us on Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern time on X, on YouTube. Follow NYMLB Talk. Follow Bullpen Sessions and follow Rounding Third. Follow Lorenzo, also one of our partners, on Big League Takes as well. So just a lot of great baseball content. So tonight, for episode 3, super excited about this. Nick came up with this subject. I want to give him all the credit here. This is going to be a what if version where we discuss the biggest what if for each team as far as the Hall of Fame goes. So we're going to talk about each team's biggest what if, and you might disagree with our choices here, but feel free to let us know. But Nick, you did a great job here of coming up with each team's biggest what if Hall of Fame, and then also a couple of these guys are like what if could have been the GOATs, right?
Yeah, there's a couple, and we'll get to them, where they're in the Hall of Fame or they're gonna be in the Hall of Fame, but it's like, what if they could be the greatest of all time? So I mean, you guys could probably make assumptions already who those guys are, but we will talk about them more in depth. So a little foreshadowing there for sure.
No question. It's going to be Mark Lipke. Is going to be one of those what if he could have been the GOAT, right?
Yeah.
So
what if he got hit by one pitch in his career instead of 0?
That's still one of the craziest stats I've ever seen. Never hit by a pitch. Yeah. All right. So look, we're gonna go through some slides here, and again, credit to Nick for coming up with these, and we're gonna talk some what ifs. So let's get started. And here we go. Here we go. So let's start off with the Boston Red Sox here, Nick, and an interesting choice. I mean, all these are super interesting choices, but as we talk about the biggest what if for the Boston Red Sox, talk about Tony Conigliaro. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I hope I didn't butcher that.
Yeah.
104 home runs, 3.5 seasons before getting hit. And this was a terrible story. Like, this is it's almost amazing this doesn't happen more often, or especially hasn't happened more often in the history of baseball. Of course, now some of these guys wear body armor, and you don't really have the the risk of the fastball hitting you in the face like you used to. But hitting the eye by a pitch. Talk about your thoughts here on Tony and his what if Hall of Fame potential, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, the way he came on the scene for the Red Sox, it was kind of post Ted Williams, a little around Yaz's time, and people were like, this is the next coming. Like, this kid was hitting the ball out of the ballpark, hitting it loud, hitting it everywhere. Red Sox fans were extremely excited. We're like, here we go. We're going to break the curse already here, in the 60s, haven't won. And then this tragic thing. I mean, 3.5 seasons, 104 home runs. He was the fastest to 100, I believe, and most home runs as a teenager. Like all the things, and then just bang. It's taken from him. Tried to come back, just vision wasn't the same, and retires at 26. But there's no doubt the trajectory was through the roof for this guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the stories that, fortunately, we don't see a lot of that where injuries really, this kind of injury, this was a devastating injury. This was a debilitating injury. And again, with the way guys throw nowadays and 100 mile per hour, this wasn't even one of those situations. I doubt the guy that hit him was throwing 100 miles per hour, but it's really, it's good that this doesn't happen more often, because you feel like if Jacob Misiorowski hit somebody in the face with one of those 102 mile per hour fastballs, we could be talking about a super, super tragic incident. So, feel really bad for this guy, because he could have been one of the greats. Is there anybody else on the radar here for the Red Sox? I really couldn't think of a better choice than what you had here.
Yeah, for like Hall of Fame potential, no. But I mean, another guy that got hit in the eye for the Red Sox was Bryce Flory on a comebacker. That was, fairly recent. Was that 25 years ago? That was in Sports Illustrated. That was a pretty bad article. He gets it right off the eye socket. They show like the fractures in his face. I mean, but for Hall of Fame, I don't think Bryce Flory would have had that. But this guy, the way he came onto the scene, like this is a no-brainer for me for the Red Sox for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No question. All right, so next up, the New York Yankees. And, I thought this was a great choice. I thought it was probably, one of the most important choices. Thurman Munson, just another tragic ending here, but 113 career home runs, 292, 1,558 career hits, 7-time All-Star, 3 Gold Gloves. I mean, pretty easy to see where this guy's career was headed. Tragically cut short by the plane crash. He clearly would have gotten to 2,000 hits. I think, right there at it. The Gold Gloves, the All-Star appearances. No question that Thurman Munson belonged on this list and the number one choice for the Yankees, in my opinion.
Yeah, I had another guy on here originally and got a lot of backlash for it because it is Thurman Munson, for sure. And this guy's a little ahead of my time, so just to show my age a little bit, right? Like I didn't, and this has been the best thing about starting this show is the amount of baseball I've learned. Like I've always thought I've known a lot of baseball until fans are like, oh no, check this guy out. Or hey, read on this guy. And it's like, holy smokes, like I never knew that, right? I'm always learning stuff, and that's the best part about this community. And the more I read on this guy, like no doubt, Hall of Famer, the defense, the offense. I mean, 292 batting average out of the catching position, right? Had the pop a little bit. I mean, and I think the story is that they were trying to trade him to Cleveland so he would not have to fly home. That's what I read a little bit. It just didn't happen, and he was practicing takeoffs and landings, and we know what happened. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, and kind of speaking to what you're talking about there, it's funny because this was before my era as well. I'm a mid to late 80s and 90s kid as far as baseball goes. But if you ask me my favorite era of baseball, it's probably like the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, because I fell in love with that time period of baseball. And like you said, one of the great things about doing the things that we do is researching those times and learning and understanding the history of baseball. And guys like Thurman Munson and Roberto Clemente and all these guys that played before we actually got to watch the game, but also understanding their stories and how good they were. It's hard to put it, for us as not having watched them, but I think we know enough about the game to understand how important they were. And it's very easy to talk to people who were there and tell us, like our buddy Rob, who's on Clearing the Bases with us, who's like, I think Rob's 93, 94 years old.
At least.
And, he watched a lot of these guys play the game, though, in all seriousness. So, yeah, this was a great pick. And to me, it was the obvious one. Who did you have originally that was causing the controversy?
I had Mark Teixeira.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So I had Mark Teixeira, and I mean, yes, Rangers, Braves kind of bounced around a little bit, but he played hurt a lot down the back stretch of his career, missed a lot of time, and he was right on the cusp. And that's why I kind of went towards him, because I thought he had more of a borderline case, if you will, right? Because Thurman Munson, 11 years, yes, he's eligible for the Hall, but the overall stats don't get him in. Teixeira's stats, if you look at him, the compiled stats that he put up make him almost hey, if he had 2 more healthy seasons, are we talking about him in the Hall of Fame? That's why I kind of selected him originally, but I mean, it is Thurman Munson here for sure.
No, look, Teixeira, I was just pulling his numbers, 50 and a half WAR, B-WAR, 1,800 hits, 409 home runs. 400 used to be one of the magic numbers, right? 268 career batting average. So definitely not a bad choice at all for Teixeira. But I think Munson, maybe it's an emotional choice for a lot of Yankees fans as well, but I think Munson definitely fits the bill. But I don't think Teixeira was a bad choice at all, for sure.
Because the defense with him too was elite. So that's why I kind of lent him, but
for sure. And, we've talked about this before, but some players I think that stick with the same team seem to have an advantage when we talk about the Hall of Fame. So Teixeira did move around a bit, Braves, Rangers, Yankees. So that may hurt his case a little bit, but certainly not a bad pick.
Yeah, for sure.
So I thought this was the next one is Tampa Bay and Evan Longoria. And this may be the obvious choice, but man, you talk about a guy who I think gets overlooked just in general. And maybe it's because he played for Tampa. Not the most media savvy franchise in baseball as far as the Rays go, but they just get the job done. But he literally pretty much leads the Rays in every category. Whatever category you want to choose offensively, it's probably a good guess to say Evan Longoria is the guy. So what were your feelings here as you made this pick, Nick, on Longoria?
I mean, obviously it's lack of history, right? I mean, that's part of it, right? The Rays are just still too young. And Evan Longoria is always going to be a Ray for me, even though he spent time in San Francisco. He spent the year with Arizona, right? He's always going to be a Tampa Bay Ray. And my question was, if he stays as a Ray his entire career, do his numbers inflate enough to make him a Hall of Famer? Because listen, you go out to San Francisco, that's a cavern of a ballpark to try to hit home runs in, right? 264 average, does that increase a little bit being in the AL East, smaller ballparks? Power numbers, do those increase? I think he would still fall short, but it makes me wonder. And this was the obvious choice just from the lack of history.
Yeah, look, he was 70 hits short of 2,000, and I wonder if he had been able to get those extra 70, which is a lot of hits. I'm not saying that was an easy jump there, but 70 more hits. And to your point, let's say he plays just 2 or 3 more seasons with Tampa and reaches that 70 more hits. He's at 2,000 hits. He plays the majority of his career with the Rays. I think he's got a shot. I mean, he was at 58.9 B-WAR, so almost 60 B-WAR without those 70 hits. So you add those in, a little more time with that team. I think he's right there on the cusp. So another great choice on your part. And I'll be honest with you, as a baseball fan who loves the game and knows a lot about the game, I would have a hard time coming up with literally anybody else from Tampa. that would be, on this list.
Yeah, that was a hard one, but I mean, as a Red Sox fan, this guy killed me because I can't remember what year it was. The Red Sox lost the game in the bottom of the ninth inning, and the Rays needed to lose. And we flip over to the Rays game to see what happens, and just next pitch, Evan Longoria hits it down the line. Rays walk it off. Red Sox out of the playoffs. It was just like heartbreaking.
It's the kind of stuff that definitely sticks with you for sure.
Oh, brutal, man. But it's Evan here for sure.
No question. Another great choice here, Toronto. I think this was again kind of an obvious one. John Olerud. He was on a path where if you had asked me in the early 90s, I would have said, this guy's a Hall of Famer. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He was on that trajectory. I don't know with Olerud. I mean, he's one of the best hitters, like just pure hitters I've seen as far as he's a guy you didn't want to see come to bat with guys on the base. Like, this guy's going to get a hit. He's going to score. And as a fan of a team who lost to the Blue Jays in the World Series as well, not a guy I have super fond memories of. Over 2,000 hits, lifetime almost 300 batting average. Again, close to 60 B-WAR. What is it about this guy, Nick, that makes the what if case? Like, why not? Is it the various teams, Blue Jays, Mets, Mariners, a little bit of time with the Yankees? What is it that makes him the biggest what if here?
I think it's the first base position in general. Like, I think as fans, we view the first base position as a Frank Thomas, as a Mark McGwire, right? We want the first base position to be a power position. Olerud really wasn't that guy.
Yeah.
So I think he's overshadowed by all those guys during that time period. And my question was, if he would have gotten that 400 season, is that alone enough to get him into the Hall of Fame? I mean, who's the last guy that batted 400? I mean, does that alone push him enough to be like, hey, we should give this guy some more consideration?
Look, it's a great question, and I don't know. I mean, I think it would definitely up his case. I don't know if it would be enough to push him over, but I mean, you look at the consistency the guy had. You throw that into the mix, and if he was, let's just say, well, we know he's the only player. Like, if he's the only player since Ted Williams to do that, then I think you make a case there, right? 2-time World Series champion, consistently 300 hitter. Does something nobody else has done since Ted Williams. 3 Gold Gloves, by the way, on top of that.
Yeah,
I think you've got a pretty good case there if he had done that. I don't know if that alone would make the case, but it would be, to me, it'd be a lot closer.
It would be a discussion for sure. And I wonder if he gets revisited later down the road. This Veterans Committee seems to go back and get these guys, quote unquote, your Harold Baines, those guys like that. So Harold Baines is a discussion for a different night, but
different topic, yeah.
Yeah. But I think and that's what the Veterans Committee was put in for, was to go back and pick up guys like this that might have fallen through the cracks. That's be like, hey, like, it's not 90s baseball without John Olerud, right? Yeah. It's not 90s baseball without Mark Grace, right? Most hits in the 90s, right? Like, it's the Veterans Committee job to like go back and kind of like, oh yeah, we definitely missed this guy. He belongs. So we'll see what happens.
I would not be shocked if one day John Olerud makes it to the Hall of Fame. Would not be shocked.
Yeah.
So Baltimore, Brian Roberts. And this was a name, I'll be honest, until I kind of looked through your slides, I'd forgotten about Brian Roberts. So this was one I had to go back and think about. But, you got all the information here. 1,527 career hits, 5 seasons of 40 or more doubles, 3 seasons with 50 or more. And then a lot of missed time here, a lot of injuries. This is a common theme, of course, on this list as far as the reason that guys didn't quite make it. But yeah, this was a guy I kind of forgot about, Nick, to be honest with you. But this brought it back, and I think you're right. I think he was on the right trajectory here.
Yeah, I mean, as a second baseman, we look at that era. Who do we have? Craig Biggio? I mean, really, that's all he was kind of competing with at that time for a Hall of Fame spot, if you will, right? But missing 527 games out of a possible 810 is when you're kind of at your peak there. I mean, 50 or more doubles. Like, we don't see that anymore. He had 3 seasons of it. I mean, the amount of doubles this guy was cranking in Baltimore was insane. I hated when he came to Fenway Park, man, would tear it apart. He killed a lot of teams and then just couldn't get on the field. So there might be some other guys with the Orioles here. They have a rich history, right? We all know the Orioles do. Sure. But for me, watching this guy and the killer he was at the plate and seeing how many games he missed, I was just like, man, it's got to be him. Because, again, second base not really well represented during that time. Some great players, but I think there was a spot to be had for sure.
For sure. Yeah, I'm glad you did this because, again, that's a guy that I kind of would have forgotten about. My first thought would have been like Chris Davis, but then I looked at his numbers. I'm like, not really. You know, he was a guy that you thought was going to be really good, but it just never kind of materialized. So definitely this was a good choice here for the Orioles. So moving on, we got another really good one. I think this guy, you know, for my money, you know, this guy maybe should get some more consideration too from the Veterans Committee. But the missed games just make it really, really tough. You got the numbers here: 715 out of 1134 over a 6-year period. Grady Sizemore, 1,098. I mean, it could have been so much more. This guy really could have been something special, I feel like. And the injuries, and you know, we'll talk about some other guys, but the injuries really took a toll here on a guy that, when I look at those numbers, man, I project that out, and you're like, yeah, this guy was on the right path for sure.
Yeah, we're talking about like Mike Trout-esque, right? Those first couple seasons, we're looking at this guy, and we're just like, this is going to be the best center fielder of this era. He had only missed 9 total games in his first 3 years, 4 years, whatever. And everybody was high on this guy. It's like, watch out. And then we just lost him. That's it. Yeah. Just couldn't get on the field. But
when we talk about injuries, Nick, and I know that, you know, these are injuries are something these players can't really control. You talk about a guy like Sandy Koufax, right? Koufax didn't have the longest career, but it was almost like you're not going to keep Sandy Koufax out of the Hall of Fame. How much, and Mike Trout's going to be a great discussion. We're going to get to Trout, obviously, but how much stock do you put in the injury bug? I mean, I know there's like in Grady's case, he didn't play enough games, didn't have enough hits and everything. But when you're a Hall of Fame voter, if it's close and the injuries are making a big impact, do you give them a little bit of grace on the injury because it is something that's largely out of their control unless they did something stupid, got in a drunk driving accident, you know, something like that. But as long as it was just a regular injury, how much grace would you give them as a Hall of Fame voter? Can you project, hey, look, if this guy played 2 more seasons healthy, then there's no question. Can you do that, or do you have to just take reality as reality?
I don't know. I mean, man, that's a tough question because I don't know what these Hall of Fame voters are thinking to begin with. Let's start with that. But I think it's really tough to project. I think in Sandy Koufax's case, right? Let's look, 4 no-hitters. Right. Yeah. It was complete, utter dominance when he was on the field, you know, other than his first, you know, was it 2 or 3 years? But then the rest of the time he played, it was just like, don't even bring your bat to the plate. Like, don't bother. Right. So you look at his career, you can project that out. Like, yeah, that's a no doubt Hall of Fame. Right. He was just so completely dominant. And a guy like Sizemore's case, where it is tough, it is so early and so much can happen. I don't know if you can project that type of a career out. I agree. I don't know if that really answers the question, but
I think we have a good example of what we're talking about coming up other than Koufax, and we'll get to that person. And when we hit that person, we'll talk about it more extensively. You're right. Look, you can't, I think in Sizemore's case, it's such a huge miss as far as the time that he missed that you can't project. If it's close, I think it's a little different. You know, if a guy is really close on a lot of numbers and he missed, say, a total of a couple of seasons because of injury, then I think you might have an argument. But in Sizemore's case, it's just too many games to project out.
I agree.
So this is a great one. I've read about this guy. I've watched highlights. He was entertaining. He was definitely on a great path. I mean, you look at that 24 complete games and 29 games started. Mark the Bird Fidrich, um, just entertainment and baseball. Sometimes baseball gets a bad rap. We all know that for being quote unquote a boring game. This was definitely a guy who brought some personality, some fun to the game. And he seemed very passionate about the game. Like I watched highlights. Like this guy enjoyed playing the game. And it's just a shame, again, the injury bug takes its toll. This guy, I feel like, is one of those surefire deals. Like if he had been able to play and be healthy, there's no question in my mind he would have gone forward as a Hall of Fame type player.
Yeah, this was a guy when I'll be blunt, when I started this podcast journey, I knew nothing about, right? The 1970s in my brain is just a black hole. I don't know much about the 70s. It's just a product of when I was born. That's just, it is what it is, right? And as I started this and people are throwing this guy out and then clips are coming out on social media of this guy, I now have two guys that I would go back and watch pitch in history, and it's Bob Gibson and this guy. I would totally travel back in time and watch this guy pitch. And everybody that I've talked to that has seen this guy said he was absolutely electric. Like the on-field antics, like you said, and his stuff. I mean, 24 complete games. I know it was a different game back then. Pitchers actually went the entire game.
Crazy.
Yeah, right. Crazy concept at this point. But the torn cartilage was just shagging fly balls in spring training. So kind of tough there. And then, he tore the rotator cuff, but it went diagnosed for a while. And then after that, he retired after 5 seasons. And unfortunately, he had an accident. He's no longer with us. But that was after the baseball career. But yeah, I mean, Detroit Tigers fans still talk about this guy, and that was 50 years ago, right? So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, he's definitely in that legends never die category, just almost like a cult hero for Detroit. And I didn't know that much about him either, but I remember watching something. It was probably on MLB Network, just kind of a documentary type deal about him and just being super. It was almost like one of those deals where you're watching, like, did they make this guy up? Like, did he really exist? Because he was a fun kind of guy, but he also had amazing stuff. And I'd never heard of him, like you said. Like, how did I not hear about this guy before? But when they only play 5 seasons, you're probably going to miss out on some of these guys. So definitely one of the great characters to learn about. If you don't know much about Mark, learn about him. Mark the Bird was his nickname.
He's very much like the Happy Gilmore of baseball, right?
Yeah,
like, are you too good for your home ball? Like, kind of like.
That's a great comparison for sure. This is one that I didn't think about either. As far as like in my head, I probably would have had a hard time coming up with this, but this is a really good one as well. Magglio Ordonez for the White Sox. I mean, 309 career average, nearly 300 homers, over 2,000 hits, 38.8 career WAR. And again, he missed, 2004, you've got it here. He missed 110 games, 80 games in 2005, 78 games in 2010, refractured his ankle in 2011. There's no question in my mind with those numbers he already had, Nick, if he plays even half of those missed games, he's probably right there. If not in the Hall of Fame, he's one of those guys that you're borderline every year you're thinking about.
Yeah, this dude was a hitting machine. The only backlash I got here from this one was when he was injured, he was in Detroit. So to kind of put him in the White Sox category, I kind of got a little heat for. So bring it. I don't care. But yeah, 309 average. Again, nobody does that anymore. He had the occasional power. He's got the World Series in there, right? Oh no, he missed the World Series with the White Sox that year. I think he was over in Detroit in 05. That's right. But 6-time All-Star, 3-time Silver Slugger. I mean, this dude was an animal when he was on the field, and just the back half of his career. What does that look like? I'm not sure. I mean, those are already pretty impressive numbers. Does he add another 75 to 100 home runs? I mean, 1,200 career RBIs. We have Hall of Famers in there with 1,500. So there's no doubt he reaches that mark. This one was I had to go Magglio here. And again, I don't know if I could come up with another White Sox other than Shoeless Joe, which I wanted to try to stay away from the obvious ones.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it was Maglio here for me ultimately.
Yeah, I was looking it up. The only other guy I could think of is Blackjack, Jack McDowell.
McDowell.
But
Mm-hmm.
his peak wasn't long enough. I mean, he had a great, say, 4 or 5 year run here. I'm looking at. He had a career total of. He had a career 1,300 strikeouts over 275 games started, a 3.85 career ERA, 127 wins. So, not quite there. So I think Ordonez is definitely the right choice here for sure.
Yep.
Johan Santana for the Twins, 139 and 78, 2,025.2 innings pitched, nearly 2,000 Ks, 2-time Cy Young, Triple Crown. Which look, don't discount that, guys. That's a big deal. Triple Crown is hard to do. 3 ERA titles, and then of course we go back to the the injury bug, the shoulder surgery. I didn't really realize again until I saw this slide, Nick, how good he was. I knew he was good, but looking at these numbers, he's another one that's right there, man, without the injuries and what he could have done. Am I wrong about this? Was Johan the first? I don't want to make an ass out of myself here. Was he the first guy to pitch a no-hitter for the Mets? Am I thinking the right guy?
I think you're right. That sounds right.
I'm gonna double check myself while you comment on the greatness of Johan Santana.
It was final score 8-0 Mets against the Cardinals.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay.
June 1st, 2012. So
yeah,
this just in, you are not an ass, Jason.
Well, not at least in that category. I mean, there's plenty of other reasons, but I'm glad my old man memory remembered that. Yep. Just throw that in on top of all these other great numbers. That's impressive stuff for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to preface this with saying he's not Sandy Koufax, but to me, right. Johan Santana should be in the Hall of Fame. Listen, he has the accolades, right? The win total's not there, but what doesn't show in stats is how utterly dominant this dude actually was. He was must-see TV. His changeup was the best I've ever seen outside of Pedro Martinez, right?
Yeah.
The batting average had to have been below 100. No one touched his changeup when he was in Minnesota. It was absolutely disgusting. I could make an argument that he should be in the Hall of Fame. And again, this might be another guy that gets revisited down the line. I think ultimately he falls short, but like I said, I can hope, I can wish, but this guy he was unhittable.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close, man. I mean, you look at from 2002, this is his ERA. 2002, 2.99, then 307, 261, which was tops in the league, 287, 277, tops in the major leagues, 333, then 253, 313, and then 298. So you're talking about a 7-year span where he was flirting with 3 and below every single season. 3 times led the league in ERA. So pretty impressive. And, numbers are such a big part of baseball. And I always wonder this with some guys who were borderline. He's basically 12 strikeouts shy of 2,000. Does that 12, does it matter to a voter when they look at that and they see, because, one of my guys obviously is a Braves fan is Dale Murphy, right? Murph has 398 career home runs. If he had hit 2 more homers, when you look at that number as a voter and you see the 400, does that make a big difference? And in Santana's case, 12 strikeouts shy of 2,000. Do you think something as small as that could make a big difference with a Hall of Fame voter?
I think it could be a decision decider, if that's even a phrase.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like if you are on the fence and you're like, all right, give me one more thing that puts this guy over the edge, and you go and he's like, man, he's just short. Like, I have to go no, right?
Yeah.
The other guy that sticks into me was Fred McGriff, right? 493. If he gets to that 500 milestone, it's a slam dunk. Forget it, right? He's in. Absolutely. 500 homers, you're in the Hall. 493, you're like, I don't know. Does he belong?
Right.
Maybe. So it's kind of the same thing. So, we're so numbers driven that for sure. If that it looked 2000 looks sexier than 1988, right? It just does. So
it does.
Yeah, it definitely for sure. I think it's a factor. I don't think it's the factor. It's just one of the factors for sure.
Well, you hit the nail on the head earlier when we talked about this, as far as like, who knows what a Hall of Fame voter is looking for. If I'm looking at that, 2 home runs shy of 400 or 7 shy of 500 in McGriff's case, which I was kind of surprised McGriff got in with less of an argument than, say, Andrew Jones. I mean, if you told me between those two, I would have put Jones in first. But, I'm looking at it as a baseball fan. How many times was Dale Murphy robbed of a home run where a guy leaped over the fence and grabbed the ball and brought it back? Surely it was more than 2. So I'm going to think about things like that. Whereas, I mean, who knows? The average Hall of Fame voter might not think that way. So it's a game of inches for sure.
Mm-hmm. And half of them don't even cover the game anymore. So there's that.
Exactly. Yeah. This might be one of my favorites because I am an Auburn University sports fan. I grew up an Auburn fan. So Bo Jackson is absolutely legend in my part of the country and in my family and friend group. He is one of the greatest, if not the greatest athlete of all time. His ability to play both sports. And look, the guy could have played any sport he wanted to, more than likely. I met him a few years ago, and I was taken aback at how big this dude is even then. Like, this guy, he's a big dude, right? And when you look at the speed he ran with and the athleticism that he had to be as big as he was a freak. He was an absolute freak. And it's an absolute shame that the hip injury that he suffered in the National Football League would be able to be fixed nowadays better than back then. He probably could have continued his career had he suffered that injury in modern times. And still, this guy played at a high level in both sports. You've got the numbers here: 141 career homers, almost 600 hits. He was an all-star. He has the famous home run in the all-star game. I don't know if he would have made the Hall of Fame, Nick, simply because if he doesn't have the hip injury, he probably plays a much longer NFL career, and that may have, taken away from his time in Major League Baseball. So he might not have made the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. I do think he would have been an NFL Hall of Famer. I mean, he could have conceivably been the first player, I guess, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, the only player to be in both Hall of Fames. Maybe I'm missing something. So, he would have been a great Major League Baseball player as opposed to a really good Major League Baseball player. But I'm not sure he would have been a Hall of Famer simply because of the dual sports.
Yeah. I don't think TV does justice to your size point, right? Like, to how big these dudes actually are, right? No. I am not by any means a small guy. I'm 6'2", 200, and I walked by Vladimir Guerrero in the concourse, right? Senior, like back in the day. And he was the 3 of me wide, 2 of me tall. And I'm just like, okay, dude, like, you're a monster. Like, you're a freak. And Bo Jackson is that guy, right? He's an absolute freak. Look at the thighs. His thighs are bigger around than my waist is. I mean, Crazy. You just don't build athletes like this. My question here was, like, what if football wasn't even a thing? Let's get football completely out, and he is full-time MLB baseball. Is he in the Hall? I mean, he had the tools. One of my favorite plays that I've ever seen him make, Yankee Stadium. He was with the White Sox at the time. Mike Gallego is tagging up from second base. He flat foot catches it pretty much at the warning track and hoses the guy out with no hop, with room to spare. Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, what? And you only play baseball 2 months out of the year? Like, stop it. Like, stop. Yeah, not fair.
Freak athlete for sure. And that's a great point. If he only plays baseball, then I think there's a really good chance he's a Hall of Fame baseball player for sure. I have to share this. It's my favorite Bo Jackson story. When he was at Auburn as a freshman, and you got to remember, folks, back in this day, the early 80s, freshmen did not usually play their first year in college football. They usually rode the bench. This was different times. Bo was going to play. He was that good of an athlete. And there's a story that Coach Pat Dye, who was his coach at the time, you like to tell about the first practice that Bo attended. And the quarterback, back then Auburn ran a wishbone offense. And so the quarterback would often, do the fake and then do the toss, and etc. So they tried to run the play, just hand it to Bo, and Bo kept overrunning the handoff. Like they would push him back a little bit. Like, okay, you got to get back further, because the quarterback would turn and Bo would already be there, right? And so he would like fumble the ball, the quarterback would drop it, and the quarterback was getting upset. And after a few times of this, the quarterback said, "Coach, you got to make him back up some more." And they'd already made him back up a couple times, and the coach said, "No, son, you got to be faster to hand the ball off, because he's just getting there that quickly," right? So he was a freak of an athlete, and I recommend anybody that's never watched Bo pull up some highlights of his time in college football. Some absolutely amazing highlights to watch. So whatever Bo decided to do full time, he was going to be great at. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's a really good chance that if he had just played baseball, he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame without question.
For sure. I could argue that he deserves to be there now anyways, just because of being a two-sport athlete. But
yeah. I mean, I think him and Deion Sanders are the two that you think of. You can throw Brian Jordan there. The guys that succeeded at a high level, if not a Hall of Fame level, they succeeded at a high level in both sports, for sure.
Yeah.
So Houston Astros, another great choice here. J.R. Richard, a guy that probably doesn't get talked about enough. And, another tragic story here with a stroke in 1980. Again, we're trying to project out. I don't know if he's a surefire guy without that stroke, but he's definitely in the conversation.
Yeah, this was another guy, again, I didn't know much about before starting this baseball journey. And actually, Justin Rinaldi, Nostalgic Baseball Geezer, like really turned me on to this guy. And he posted some clips. And he had stuff that I had never seen before. Even watching modern day pitchers, you watch J.R. Richard pitch, and everything he threw was heavy. I mean, heavy ball with gas. This dude was disgusting. There's some guys I would never want to stand in the box against, and J.R. Richard's probably one of those guys.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all set.
I'll be honest. I don't want to stand in the box against any of these guys. As a guy who couldn't hit a fifth grader's fastball, I'm pretty sure that I would struggle with these guys. So, yeah, J.R. Richard was on a great pace. I'll throw one more Astro out there, and I know you're familiar with this guy, Jose Cruz. I don't know if he's a what if in that. I mean, he played a long career, so injuries weren't a factor. He played a 28-year career. Yeah, 18-year career. 54.4 WAR, 2,200 hits, career 284 batting average. So he's the guy that I would say is a borderline guy for the Astros, but there's no what if there because he did play a very long career. So great choice in J.R. Richard for sure.
Yeah, definitely another series to think about is borderline guys instead of what if. Like, give me the borderline guys, but yeah,
for sure. Cruz put Cruz on that list. Yeah, two-time Silver Slugger, two-time All-Star.
Yeah.
This guy, man, Josh Hamilton of the Rangers. I mean, this might be one of the most tragic guys just because this was self-inflicted mostly. I mean, he had the knee issue and thumb, but I mean, the drug issue really is probably the common thing here for him. I thought this guy might be one of the greatest hitters we were going to see. I mean, he was at one point, you felt like you couldn't get this guy out. He seemed to be on a trajectory of just, epic proportions. And then the injuries and the drug addiction all combined, huge fall off a cliff. But, MVP award, no question, this guy was headed to great things. Very tragic story here with Josh Hamilton.
Yeah, he is the natural. He just naturally was gifted. The 4 home run game in Baltimore, like that's not even on the slide.
Right.
This dude was just an absolute hitting machine to the definition. I'm thinking a left-handed Albert Pujols if we have a full career, right? Like those type of numbers. I mean, the average, the home runs, the power. This dude was incredible on a crazy good Texas Rangers team at the time as well. Just man, it was tough to watch this one, and it's still hard to bring up because he is in my top 5 what ifs of all time, because this guy could have been one of the top 5 greats in the game. I know that's saying something, but the guy had that potential. He had that potential, and
he did.
We lost it.
You know, I just thought of another great subject, the team what ifs, right? I mean, you think about that Rangers team, Nick, they had a chance. You know, you take 2023, and if they had won those 2 World Series they were in before, which they were close, I mean, they were good teams. You think about the different narrative around the Texas Rangers franchise. If they had won, even if they won one of those 2 and add it to 2023, you're talking about 2 or 3 titles within the last, 15 years. That's a different narrative for that franchise if they pull that off. And that Cardinal series especially is one that probably haunts a lot of Rangers fans to this day because they were so close, so very close.
David Freese, man. Ugh.
David freaking Freese. That's probably how they say it there.
Oh, for sure.
David effing Freese. All right, so this is one I've been waiting to get to. You know, this is not what if Hall of Fame as far as, you know, he's in the Hall of Fame, deservedly so. But what if the GOAT? And I absolutely believe that without the injuries, Ken Griffey Jr. is the greatest baseball player of all time. He might be that for me regardless, but definitely without the injuries, Ken Griffey Jr., best baseball player of all time. I mean, I don't think it's an argument if he doesn't get hurt.
Yeah, I just absolutely incredible talent here. My eyes were opened as we had a former MLB player, Terry Shumpert, on our show, and he was drafted around the same time as Griffey, and he had never seen him play before. And Shumpert was coming out of college where Griffey was coming like straight from his teenage years, right? And everyone's like, oh, yeah, wait till you see Griffey hit. Wait till you see Griffey hit. And he goes, it was unworldly. Like, I'm sitting here with a ton of talent, and then you have this kid just walk in and be like, okay, like, am I even playing baseball? Like, what am I doing with my life? He made you think that, like, you just weren't good enough. This guy, no doubt, would have been the GOAT in my eyes. But playing as hard as he did also made him that good. So playing hard, you know, you're more susceptible to the injuries. I would rather have somebody fracture a wrist. I know that sounds terrible, right? Than the hamstring, the tendons, the ligaments. That stuff all seems to like come back, right? We're seeing the obliques now with a lot of players. I don't want a soft tissue injury. Dude, break something. I know you're back in 6 weeks. That's it. If it's soft tissue, you could be out most of the season because it keeps reoccurring. And that's unfortunately what kind of happened with Griffey down the stretch. It was the hamstring that he just couldn't come back from. It really hindered him. But to still put up 630 homers is absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, I think no doubt he's the GOAT.
Yeah, when you factor in the missed time and he still had that many home runs, I so wish for many reasons. You look as a big fan, as a admirer of Hank Aaron, it still breaks my heart that Barry Bonds technically broke that record. If Ken Griffey Jr. had broken that record, I would have celebrated it. I would have been so happy for Ken Griffey Jr. and for baseball because I think he was a great ambassador of the game. He still is. People adored Ken Griffey Jr. They still do. He was, in our era, I think, the most popular baseball player regardless. And, it's just a shame. And you know, you talk about Terry Shumpert. We had Brian Hunter from the Braves early 90s teams, and he kind of came up. He said he played in like one of the youth World Series type deals before you get drafted. And he thought he was pretty good, and he was like 17 and he's cranking out home runs. But there was this like 15-year-old kid who was just showing everybody up, and it was Griffey. He was like 2-3 years younger than everybody else. And he just had this air about him. It's like, I'm going to be better than you. I'm going to be better than you are. And he was better than everybody else. So I so wish him and Bo Jackson, really having them in this conversation, to me, the two guys that injuries really robbed us of something even greater than they already were. I mean, it's not like we missed out totally because they were still really, really great. But it could have been even better for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that leads great into the next guy, Nick. Mike Trout. He's the current poster boy for this discussion, I think. you look at his numbers, he's already over 400 home runs. A couple hundred shy of 2,000 hits, easily a 2,500 to 3,000 hit guy without the injuries. And he still amassed 87.5 career WAR, 3 MVP awards. I mean, I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer regardless. But again, like with Griffey, were we robbed, Nick, of seeing maybe the greatest baseball player of all time?
Yes, for sure. These numbers aren't updated for this season because I did this series a while ago, but so we've missed more games, right? We have more career home runs. But first of all, Anaheim is a factor here, right? The fact that he wants to stay here, that's a factor. But I can also respect the loyalty in the same breath.
Absolutely.
However, yes, and no doubt this dude had what it takes to be number one all time. The injuries, the back that he still battles every day. I think he's got like the degenerative back disorder, something like that. Not to the scale of Chris Bryant, who we'll get to later, but he still battles that every day, right? Which then throws off everything else in your body. And I don't think that's what people understand is when your core is messed up, that's your abs or your back, everything else has to compensate. And then that's when the injuries happen, right? When your core is not stable, that's when the other things in your body start go awry. And unfortunately, that's what's happening with Trout. But yeah, for me, I think this is a slam dunk. He's number one. It's top 5 easy, no doubt.
Yeah. No, I mean, you talk about Griffey and Trout, 2 of the guys that, they could be number 1 and number 2 or 1A and 1B. And look, I mean, honestly, even with the injuries, these guys are in that conversation. If you just take the time we got to watch them, they're in the conversation. I mean, it's a different era. We've talked before about, is it actually worse for these guys to be in such good shape? You can't pull fat, that kind of theory.
Right.
But when you put them in the conversation with guys like Willie Mays and Hank Aaron and those guys, like they're right there, man. As far as in their peak and when they were healthy, it's hard to argue. And people that want to like blame Trout and make fun of Trout because he gets hurt, it's absolutely ridiculous that he's not trying to get hurt, guys. He's not trying to get hurt on purpose. Right. As a Braves fan, there's a lot of critics out there of Ronald Acuna Jr. who could be on the same path as a what if. One day if somebody does this list 50 years from now, they might say Ronald Acuna Jr. is the Braves representative on this list because of the injury situation. But these guys aren't trying to get hurt. And in Trout's case, I think we were not only robbed, you brought up a great point, we're not only robbed of seeing him as a great player because of the injuries, we were robbed of seeing him as a great player because he played in Anaheim. And that's no knock on Angels. Sorry, Angels fans. But if he had been on any team on the East Coast or even the Dodgers, the Giants, it's just a different story. I mean, Barry Bonds is considered by a lot to be the greatest player of all time. He played in San Francisco. So you don't have to be on the East Coast in the peak of your career. But in Trout's case, he just got buried there in Anaheim. No question.
Yeah, and the stats that kill me are the 404 career homers and only 1,000 career RBIs.
Yeah.
Look, he played 120 games, I think, in 2023. He had 40 home runs. You know how many RBIs he had? 80.
That's crazy.
40 and 80. You hit 40 home runs, you only had 80 RBIs, man. That means 35 of those were solo shots. Right? Yeah. It's crazy. But yes, he is top of the list for me, for sure.
Well, there's going to be a show 30 years from now, if baseball is still around, or even if not, somebody's going to do a show and say, wait, the Angels had Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout and won jack crap. No playoff wins, no nothing, zilch, zero, zip. That's a tragedy. It's a baseball tragedy. For sure.
Well, they never even played on the team at the same time, pretty much, because Shohei was out with the Tommy John, then Trout was out when Shohei came back. So, they didn't even play together. That's the crazy part. But
that is the crazy. It is. It's insane for sure. The A's, the A's have a long history, so there's probably many players we could have chosen here. I thought this was a great choice because Eric Chavez is one of those guys that, in his prime, I feel like I was thinking, absolutely, this guy is on an amazing trajectory. And then he just kind of disappeared. Like you forgot that Eric Chavez was a thing, right? You like you
Mm-hmm.
forgot that he was that good. And then, again, this is one of those until you did this list and I saw this slide, I was like, oh yeah, Eric Chavez was pretty damn good in his time. And then you start looking at these numbers and how much time he missed. He's still a 6-time Gold Glove winner.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, I remember using Eric Chavez on one of the MLB video games I used to play and dominating with Eric Chavez. So this was a guy who was on that path, and another guy that kind of under the radar for me that I'd kind of forgotten about.
Yeah, for me, this is all about the defense. Listen, the offensive numbers aren't going to get him in. But when I was in high school and college, I played third base, I played the infield. I watched videos of how this guy played the infield, right? He was so far ahead of everybody defensively at the time when he was healthy that I viewed Chavez here in this spot as an Ozzie Smith, a Brooks Robinson. They're in the hall for their defense, right?
Yeah.
They're not in for their offensive numbers. They're not in at all. Chavez was on that trajectory defensively to be that elite to get into the hall. That's how good his defense was.
Absolutely. Yeah. We had a great discussion last week with Lorenzo on that episode about, we were talking about the theme of the show was where's the offense? How has contact baseball gone away? And one of the things we talked about was how you don't see as many of the great plays like the Ozzie Smiths and the Eric Chavez and Brooks Robinson because guys aren't hitting the ball out to these positions, right? I mean,
Right.
I grew up watching Ozzie Smith being absolutely amazed, not as a Cardinals fan. I just loved Ozzie Smith, watching him vacuum up balls out there at shortstop and making great plays. Chavez is definitely on that list. And, luckily we got to see guys like Ozzie. And it's kind of amazing from that era too, Nick, that guys like Ozzie Smith and Mike Schmidt that survived that time of playing on that awful artificial turf they had back then at Veteran Stadium and Busch and all the places that Riverfront, Three Rivers. It's pretty amazing. We actually got to see that. So, but yeah, Chavez definitely a great choice here for the A's. This is one that I'm pretty passionate about. I think David Wright. I see the numbers. I know if you just look at these numbers, he's not a Hall of Famer. But man, if you watch this guy play, and as a Braves fan, this guy tortured us, absolutely tortured us. I feel like he's a guy you got to look at pretty closely. Nearly 300 career batting average. I know the other numbers are not there. I get it, but man, the injuries really took a toll here. He's one of those that I might look at and try to project a little bit, Nick, because he just felt like a Hall of Famer when he was in his prime.
Yeah, and think about it. He would have been the first career Met. Think about that. And all of Mets history, right? How many career Mets can you name off the top of your head? I don't think I could sit here and do it, honestly.
Yeah.
This guy was on that trajectory to be a career Met. We could argue Pete Alonso should have been, but anyways, David Wright was that guy. He was Mr. Met. He was Captain America. He was everything. And the numbers were there. And he just could not get in front of the injuries. The injuries just hit him like a brick wall, and it's terrible. And another guy, spinal stenosis, kind of really took over, and just it messes these guys up, man. But it was David Wright here. Nobody else I could think fits this mold. I mean, just everything he meant to that city, that organization. It's just kind of tough to see him end the way he did.
For sure. I think two of the guys that came to mind, pretty obvious here, Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden, as far as the drug issues. They would not have been career Mets like David Wright, so I think he was the right choice, no pun intended. But yeah, if you look at Dwight Gooden's early numbers, I was like 6-7 years old when he first broke into the league. And looking at his early numbers, I think I shared some of this with you guys in our chat. Insane. Absolutely insane numbers from Dwight Gooden. So you do wonder if they could have laid off the nose candy, if those two could have been on the same trajectory for sure.
Yeah, don't do booger sugar, kids. Not good.
Don't do booger sugar, please. Like I wouldn't even have doubted this guy was a Hall of Famer. and he still almost hit 400 runs in the Phillies. Him and Utley together, that time of Phillies baseball. If I'm a Phillies fan, I probably still long for that period of time. They won the World Series, went to another World Series. But Ryan Howard, you talk about another guy that tortured the Atlanta Braves during his heyday. This guy was just the guy you did not want to see come to bat. I mean, ever. If he came to bat against my Braves, he was going to do something terrible against us. And then, the Achilles injury just ruined it for him. And I hate it because he seems like really a genuinely good guy as well, just seeing Ryan Howard on television. But, super tragic story here for Ryan Howard as well.
Yeah, one of those huge opposing figures, right? He was like Yordan Alvarez is right now. Like that was Ryan Howard during his career, right? Like he gets into the box and you're just like, okay, like what am I going to throw to this dude, right? Now, the one thing that's like, he has a 258 average, right? It doesn't blow your socks off, right? Especially in that time, 258 is a little on the low side.
Sure.
But everything else he brought to the game, you couldn't make a mistake in the strike zone. He was going to punish it. Opposite field, pull the ball 500 feet. It didn't matter. This guy came up in big moments, delivered. And then that Achilles tear was just the start of the avalanche, unfortunately, and just couldn't get back on track. Another guy, tough to see, hard to project what he would be because he was starting to be on the back 9-ish of his career. So what does his numbers really look like in the end? I don't know. But again, another guy that I could make an argument for during that era to be in.
I mean, look, there were two guys mid to late 2000s, 2006, 2010-ish. You did not want to see come up to bat against your team. And it was him and Albert Pujols. I mean, they were almost guaranteed to do something really bad against your team. So, for sure. So this was a really good one. Me and you talked about this one. Steve Avery of the Braves. And as a young Braves fan at that point, I was in my teenage years, Avery was included in that. People forget. A lot of people now kind of forget. Maddox didn't join the Braves till 93. So 91, 92, you had Glavine, Smoltz, and Avery. That was the original big three, quote unquote. Avery pitched some huge postseason games in 1991 and 1992. And in 1995, by the way, he was part of the World Series team. He pitched a huge game in Cleveland in the 95 World Series on the road. The Braves had a monster time trying to win a road game in the World Series. He pitched them to victory, and it was the key win as they went back home and won that World Series. Steve Avery, without a doubt, was on a great trajectory and would be mentioned along with those guys more often. But, again, injuries took their toll, and I think people kind of forget about Steve Avery, to be honest with you, against those other guys, Nick.
Yeah, so for me, I say this on my show a lot, is like, when I fell in love with baseball, I'd come home from school. The Cubs were on in the afternoon because they didn't play night games at the time, right? And then the Braves were also on national TV on TBS at 7 o'clock. So it was Cubs in the afternoon, Braves. Every time I turned the Braves on, this dude was on the hill, right? He was the Tim Wakefield for the Red Sox. It's like, oh, who's pitching? Oh, yeah, Steve Avery. Duh. I mean, he was that guy. He was always there. And for me, this was really the only guy I could think of that was what if, again, that wasn't obvious, right? We all want Dale Murphy in. Like, what if, right? What if his peak was longer? We want him in. I still want him in now. But for me, I wanted to try to think outside the box a little bit on these. And for me, it was Avery because he's in that pitching staff. That's only going to make him a better pitcher. Being around Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz, all those guys, right? Sure. So, unfortunately, I'm going to throw this back on you as being a diehard Braves fan. Do you think the early workload early in his career attributed to his injuries later on?
Possibly, but, back then, the Braves pitching coach at that time was Leo Mazzoni, and Leo had a different philosophy at that time that was very different than his cohorts, and that was keep these guys throwing in between starts. Have them throw, have them keep stretched out. And it was very unique at the time. And so I'm not sure if it did or not because, Glavine was worked pretty hard during those times. Smoltz was worked pretty hard during those times. And they came out – those guys turned out okay. They did all right. I think sometimes it's just bad luck, man. With Trout and Griffey. Like, It's nothing they did wrong or anything did wrong. It's just kind of one of those bad luck deals. But look, the Braves don't do what they did in the early 90s without Steve Avery. 1991, Game 6, NLCS, they don't go to that first World Series. They were down 3-2, going to Three Rivers for 2 games against the Pirates. And he had to pitch Game 6, and he pitched an absolute gem to get him to Game 7 when Smoltz won Game 7. So, I mean, you could always say maybe. You don't know, but I think when you look at the rest of that pitching staff, came out okay. Probably not. I will say this too. There's one other guy that I would put. My second choice for the Braves is Bob Horner. Injuries devastated that guy. I mean, this is a guy that came out and was in the major leagues his first 2 months as a pro. Like, he basically skipped the minor leagues and went straight to the majors, which is absolutely unheard of nowadays. And then injuries took the toll. He had a 4-home run game. I mean, he was the guy. He was going to be the next big thing, and injuries took their toll there. But yeah, I think Steve Avery. I hate to blame the workload. I just think maybe some bad luck there with the injuries.
Okay, fair enough.
And maybe that's my bias showing, but
nah.
Who knows? Right?
It's all good, even if
He's still a legend in Atlanta. I'll tell you that. He's still beloved among Braves fans of my age, because we know that without him, we don't win. We don't go to that World Series. We probably don't go in 92, and we don't win the 95 World Series. So he was a key part of all that.
Yeah. One of the best pickoff moves ever, too.
Absolutely, for sure. Maybe the most tragic member of this list, and one that I think haunts all of us as baseball fans, as human beings, obviously, but just as baseball fans, to be robbed of watching Jose Fernandez pitch longer and in such a tragic and sudden way as it was. This guy was nasty, Nick. He was nasty. The Marlins had something maybe cooking during this time with some really great players, and in a franchise that, they've got 2 World Series titles, which is kind of hard to believe, but for the most part has been a pretty moribund franchise. Jose Fernandez might have given them something that they have not been able to replicate since. And this guy, look, you don't know how injuries would have played into it eventually, but he was something special. No question about it.
Yeah, this moment completely changed the trajectory of the Miami Marlins, because just think about this. We would be in Jose Fernandez's prime right now.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much.
He would be a Dodger right now. He would be a Los Angeles Dodger.
I mean, that is fair. But would he? Would the Marlins have held on to Stanton? Would the Marlins have held on to Yelich? Would the Marlins have held on to Real Muto?
Yeah.
Right? They had all those guys, right? They had Ozuna. They had Yelich. They had Stanton. They had Real Muto. They had the pieces to be really good. And then the accident happens in 2016. I remember where I was when the notification came through my phone. I was actually playing baseball myself in a men's league, and it just the game stopped for a second, and we were just like, "Damn, no way!"
Yeah.
But yeah, this kid was electric, and so glad I got to see him for a little bit. He was the reason to tune into Marlins games there when he was there. Man, absolutely tragic. But yeah, the Marlins look completely different today if he's still around, for sure.
Yeah. And guys, look at that stat for a minute. 589 Ks in 471 innings pitched. He started 76 games over 4 seasons, and he had 589 strikeouts. In 4 seasons, by the way, his season ERA was never over 2.9. Like 2.92 was his highest in 4 seasons. 2.19, 2.44, 2.92, and 2.86. He was headed for something extremely special, and maybe the guy on this list, Nick, to your point, that affected the future of an entire franchise with the tragic ending, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
This is the guy that I thought when we were having the Sandy Koufax conversation, Steven Strasburg. This guy, when he was on the mound, he was hard to beat. He was hard to beat, and luckily for Nationals fans, he was healthy enough and pulled it together enough to help them win the 2019 World Series. And a lot of guys are not that fortunate. King Griffey, no World Series. Mike Trout, no World Series. Strasburg won a World Series, and he was a big part of that World Series. In fact, he was the MVP of that World Series. So he's a guy that I look at, and even with a shortened career, when you look at these numbers, probably not enough for anybody, Veterans Committee or anybody to say, okay, we should put him in. But man, if you want to project things and look at a guy that when he was on the mound was pretty unstoppable, Steven Strasburg is in that category.
Yeah, debut, 14 Ks, no walks. I mean, you can't really start a major league career better than that, right?
Right.
But that World Series cost him his career. Yeah, they rode him like a horse, and he pretty much threw out his arm to win that World Series for the Nationals, and that's just it's a testament to the type of player that kid was. And the Nationals noticed that earlier in his career because they did limit the innings. We're like, listen, we have to dial you back. I think earlier, before 2019, they were slated to make the playoffs, and they stopped him in August. They're like, you're done. You're done for the year, buddy. So they had an innings limit on him even when they were making a playoff push. So they did what they could to hold him back because I, in some way, maybe saw this was coming. I don't really know. But after 2019, he couldn't lift his arm above his shoulder. Like, there's stories out there where like he can't play pass with his kids. Like, he can't get his arm above his shoulder anymore. Like, he put it all on the line. This is the definition of putting it all on the line to win. And he did that. The whole Nationals thing behind the scenes, it's not pretty with how they handled him, and he wanted to retire, and they wouldn't let him. They're like, yeah, we'll see you in spring training. He's like, guys, I can't even lift my arm. Like, what are we doing here? So the Nationals dealing with him was not great, but this dude was a maniac on the mound.
Yeah, that's terrible, because you want to think that these teams, and I know this is naive, I understand before I say this, you want to think that these teams have the players' best interest in heart. But when you hear players say things like, hey, it's a meat market, we're basically just, we're the talent and they don't care. This kind of situation makes you realize they're probably right. And you do ask yourself, though, what is it worth to win a championship? Is it worth your entire career to win that one title? We see it in football. Those guys put their lives. We see it post-football career. Was it worth it? Was it worth the money? Was it worth the fame? Was it worth a championship or two? I don't know. In Strasburg's case, I don't know. One World Series title, it kind of ruins your career, ruins your chances of the Hall of Fame. Would you rather have that career, or would you rather have King Griffey Jr.'s career with no ring? I mean, I think it's a question you have to ask yourself.
Yeah. That's a wash for me. I mean, I just want to play one inning of Major League Baseball, but there's that.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I would be happy to be the guy who played like 2 games, struck out 6 times over 2 games, and got a ring because I was on the team that year. I mean, I'll take that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Another great pitcher here that, for the Cubbies, Kerry Wood. Again, in his prime, there would have been no question in my mind. But pitchers, and we've gotten to this point. I hate to say this was a long time ago for us, 27, 28 years ago. But now, as soon as a pitcher comes on the scene, and like Paul Skeens, great example. Right now, you would say 20 years from now, that dude's in the Hall of Fame. However, you have to take into account the potential for blowing out an elbow, having multiple Tommy John surgeries, and never quite being what we thought he would be. Spencer Strider is a great example for the Braves. That guy's probably never going to be what he looked like he was going to be. I hate to say this, I don't want to jinx the guy, but Jacob Misiorowski, I'm just kind of waiting for that, that ESPN alert to come across, that he's having season-ending surgery. Kerry Wood's a great example of that. When I watched Kerry Wood at the time, he seemed unhittable, and there was no question in my mind this guy is going to be dominating baseball for a decade or more. And again, the injuries just catch up. And even this is 25 years ago, Nick, before there was such a premium placed on velocity like it is now. And still, he missed all this time, and it cost himself a great career.
Yeah, I almost dueled playered this with Mark Pryor, right? Mark Pryor and Kerry Wood were the same exact guy, same exact time frame. But I just decided, I was like, you know what? I haven't been doing it on the other teams. I got to pick one. I went with Kerry Wood. The 20 strikeout game against the Astros. I mean, talk about a team that was lost at the plate. They had no idea what was coming. The last pitch of the game is a slider 3 feet outside.
Yeah.
These guys were flailing at everything because they couldn't see it. He was just that nasty that day. I mean, we saw that and we're like, man, this kid is going to be something special. And then 14 trips during his 13 seasons to the IL is crazy. And you lost it all of 1999 with Tommy John. So that's a lot of trips in that short amount of time. Like it's just unfortunate. And unfortunately, Harrison and I have been talking about this a lot on our show is pitchers are dime a dozen now. Are we going to see this more often? Right? Is Skeens, I hope not, to your point, is Skeens and Mizorowski's career 6 years, and then we're going to get the next guy that throws 102, right? It's the next guy up at this point. We don't have pitchers anymore. We have throwers. And it's kind of what Kerry Wood was at that time before it kind of all switched to the velocity. So, yeah.
I think we have to have a future episode of Bullpen Sessions where we talk about where we're at with velocity and throwing our arms off and the trade-off that you get because – and look, as a Hall of Fame voter going forward, you're going to have to completely rearrange how you look at pitchers.
Oh, for sure.
Judge this, right? I mean, it used to be the standard was 300 wins and 3,000 strikeouts. And look, nobody's going to touch 300 wins, maybe ever from here on out, unless the game rotates back around to guys who actually pitch. And we talked about last week, me and Lorenzo, do you incentivize starting pitchers going longer? He threw out, tying the DH to the starting pitcher. If you pull your starting pitcher, then you got to pull the DH. But now you've got this whole argument about you got your $38 million DH, Kyle Schwarber, sitting on the bench for half the game. There's a lot that goes into that. So it's a great discussion and something we'll definitely approach down the road. But we could make it a Hall of Fame super all-star team just out of the pitchers we've talked about on this list tonight.
Yeah,
for sure.
Easily.
Eric Davis, one of the most talented baseball players I think I've ever watched. He was a guy that a lot of us as kids, he was in my kind of late childhood, early teenage years when we were out in the yard emulating players. Eric Davis was one of those guys. We tried to copy his batting stance. He was just one of those guys that you thought was, and again, he kind of just, not that he disappeared, but you almost don't realize how quickly these injuries take a toll because he goes from being one of the best players in baseball to kind of non-existent because of the injuries and something, crazy like a lacerated kidney, colon cancer, things you don't really think about. But in his prime, Eric Davis is one of the best players in baseball without question.
Yeah, we had another one of his former teammates on our show, Skeeter Barnes, and he would talk about Eric Davis, and he goes, it was just another one of those like Griffey things, right? Where it's just like he is clearly the best guy on the field, and he doesn't even have to tell you he's the best guy on the field. You just watch him for 2 minutes, and you're just like, yeah. I mean, for me, it's that stretch where he had 50 home runs and 100 stolen bases that carried over 2 seasons. It's just that's something that we're not going to see. The closest was Acuna when he had the 40 and 70, right? That's kind of that was Eric Davis, but better during that span. And think of how good Acuna was during that stretch. Eric Davis was 10 home runs and 30 stolen bases better than that stretch from Acuna. It's just that's mind blowing to me. And there's no doubt this guy's in the Hall if he could stay on the field for even a little bit more time than he did.
Yeah, to me, he's a no doubter without the injuries. Pretty amazing baseball player. Prince Fielder is a great choice here because, again, at one point I would have thought, well, he's on pace he's going to be a 500 homer type guy. I mean, he was just, like his dad, he could hit the ball just ridiculously far. And he had a good stretch there of health, as you have it here. From 06 to 13, he was pretty much good to go. And then neck injuries, like you mentioned, the back injuries, and that's part of this too. Those are killers, man, because they just affect the entire body. And he's another one that fell victim to that. He's a guy that he plays full seasons there. I think he's got a pretty good shot at 500 homers, at least 450. And we're probably talking about him being one of those borderline guys, maybe not even borderline. Maybe he's in.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not even the power numbers with Prince for being such a big guy, man. He was a complete hitter. He could hit to all fields. He could spray it, right, if he needed to. And I mean, I don't want to say leg out doubles, but you know what I mean? Like maybe wobble out doubles. I don't know, but he was electric to watch. Yeah, he had a ton of pop in his bat, right? But he could also just flat out hit. And then when you mess up the spine, man, and everything rotates out of the spine in your neck or back, like you said, it's game over. And unfortunately, I mean, the cool stat is him and his dad have the same amount of career home runs at 319. It's still one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a what if slam dunk for Prince, and wish we could have seen a full career out of him.
Yeah, by the way, to your point, 7 out of 8 seasons he hit 30 or more doubles. And the one season he didn't, it was 25. So that's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive for a guy that wasn't going to leg out a lot of doubles. He had to actually hit the ball in the gap to get the double for sure.
Right.
All right. So St. Louis, this is probably a forgotten guy, honestly. Rick Ankiel. He got the yips, right? And that's something that baseball is probably it's unique to baseball. We've seen that with various players. Mackey Sasser comes to mind, the yips as a catcher. But Rick Ankiel, he made himself a pretty darn good hitter, Nick. He wasn't going to get to the Hall of Fame solely on that, but you do wonder if this guy could have overcome the yips, what would have happened. He's a very interesting story here as far as a what if.
Yeah, so this one was no doubtedly, disclaimer, my biggest stretch to say Hall of Famer, right? I mean, honestly, right? Like,
yeah,
but it was, and that's what I kind of put at the end was that the quote was, the story is the stuff of legend, because yes, he got the yips from the pitch. We all remember that postseason and feeling bad for him. I mean, it was just pitch to the backstop, spiked it 5 feet in front of the mound, then back to the backstop. And you're just like, oh God, we are watching a guy completely implode here. Yeah. He took a 7-year gap between pitching and hitting. And I don't think people even realize that it was 7 years between the two.
Yeah.
And to then come back, have a 240 average, 400 hits, 76 homers. He had the power.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, Hall of Fame is a complete stretch. I get it before you all jump down my throat, right? I heard it when I released this post. But like the story is incredible. Like a guy that, I mean, pretty much the yips is the worst. Like you don't say that around the ballpark. If you say the yips, if you say the Y word around the ballpark, you're escorted out.
Right.
Like you don't, that's worse than the F-bomb at a baseball field. You don't say that here. You get out. And for him to come back mentally, it took him 7 years. So what? He still did it and still came back at a, it's an absolutely wild story. And I love that he could come back. This is a guy that I would, if I ever got the opportunity to have him on the show, I could stop podcasting altogether and just be like, I just want to listen, man. Like, your story is incredible. I'll give you one question and just talk for an hour. I'll listen.
No question. Look, the 7 years makes it even more impressive. And two guys that I would say that about, that if I could just interview them and talk about that, him and Jim Abbott, like a one-handed guy who pitched a no-hitter and made a major league career. Pretty impressive stuff. This guy's one of my favorite players ever, honestly. I was so excited that the Braves actually signed him recently, put him in the minor leagues, and he was actually hitting the ball well in the AAA ranks for the Braves, and then they cut him loose. They DFA'd him. I was looking forward to maybe seeing him in a Braves uniform. But Andrew McCutchen, and you put here that, what if he spent his whole career in Pittsburgh? And I think it's a great point. I mean, he still has 2,200 hits, 332 career homers, 220 stolen bases. One of my favorites. So sentimentally, he's a guy that I would love to see at Cooperstown. Obviously, probably not going to get there, but it is an interesting question. He's one of those we talked about earlier. Does it help your case when you play for one franchise? And I think in his case, it's probably true. Probably would have.
Yeah, I think this is the guy that I think of that if he spent his entire time in Pittsburgh, he's in, right?
Yeah.
Roberto Clemente Award, don't discount that, right?
Yeah.
What this guy means off the field is exactly what the Hall of Fame is looking for. The Hall of Fame is looking for guys like Andrew McCutchen, right? And I'm with you, Jason. He's one of my favorite current players to watch during my lifetime. I've always been a McCutchen fan. He's actually the only, other than Jason Varitek, who's my all-time favorite, as you can see behind me, right. He's the only other player jersey I have in my closet.
Wow.
And I just love everything. Yeah, I love everything about him. Like I said, on and off the field. If he stays in Pittsburgh, he becomes a Pittsburgh legend. I mean, he already is. But does that up his legend status in Pittsburgh and across the MLB? I think it does. And I think it might be just enough to get him that final push. He won't be a first ballot, wouldn't be a second, but I think they would eventually be like, you know what? And the ballot's been pretty weak, and the stuff coming up's not very great either. So
good point.
Maybe he could sneak in there. The numbers are a little light. Like we said, we're numbers sports. The numbers are a little light. But sometimes baseball means more than numbers sometimes. And I think this guy fits the mold.
Do you ever have to ask yourself, can you tell the story of baseball without this person? I think Dale Murphy falls into that category. Can you tell the story of baseball in the 1980s without Dale Murphy? Can you tell the story of baseball in the 2000s without Andrew McCutchen? I think it's a fair question, numbers or not. I'll say this too. We went to Pittsburgh, my wife and I, a few months ago for our first game to see PNC Park, and I probably saw more. He wasn't playing for them at the time. More McCutchen jerseys than any other player, including Skeens, while we were at that ballpark. And I think that says a lot about how the people of Pittsburgh feel about McCutchen and people in baseball in general.
And remember, he does have an MVP in there too. So that also adds to the aura of Andrew McCutchen.
Sure. Yeah. Big time Timmy Jim. Tim Lincecum, my favorite Sports Center commercials of all time with Tim Lincecum. This guy was a beast, and my heart goes out to this guy because, like me, he's a small dude. I'm a short guy, certainly a little heavier than Lincecum, but being a small guy myself, this guy could bring it. And 2 no-hitters, 3 World Series titles. Again, we talk about those World Series titles. How much weight does that carry? Only 19.5 career WAR, but man, during his time, this guy was as unhittable as anybody in baseball, and 3 World Series titles says a lot.
Yeah, for me, this is the guy. I mean, he was just utter dominance in that era. Like, he's mostly the reason the Giants won the series that time. No one could figure him out.
Yeah,
the unorthodox delivery over the top, you never saw, right? He's got that weird back bend, comes straight over the top. We're kind of seeing that now with Trey Savage, right? Yeah. But Trey Savage has also been on the IL a lot this year. So you're starting to see, yes, the mechanics got him to the big leagues, but was that ever going to be sustainable? The answer is no. It's the proper pitching mechanics might get you there, but you're not going to be able to sustain it. And it's unfortunate because this guy was just, again, another one of those must-see TVs. Oh, Tim Lincecum starting, I'm tuning into the Giants. You've got to watch him.
Just real quick here, I want to touch on this because one of his teammates during that time, if you just judged a pitcher on their postseason career, Nick, Madison Bumgarner was as unhittable in the postseason during that stretch as any pitcher maybe in history. He doesn't have the overall numbers to be a Hall of Famer, but they don't win a couple of those titles without him. In fact, the one they beat the Royals, it was basically Madison Bumgarner versus the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah.
And Bumgarner won.
Right.
So, how much weight do you put on just a postseason performance? Bumgarner's right there in that conversation. And, Jack Morris is a guy that might be in largely just because of his postseason performances. So just an interesting thought there as a teammate of big-time Timmy Jim there.
Absolutely.
Brandon Webb, another, pitcher. What if, obviously did win a Cy Young and then second place the 2 years after that and another shoulder injury. Big shocker there. But not a guy I probably would have thought about right off. But once I started looking at it, looked at the numbers, and remembered kind of where he was headed. He was definitely a guy that you thought about as that next big thing. And again, the injuries just kind of derailed him here for Arizona.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I love seeing he's still on the Arizona broadcast. He's still a huge part of the Diamondbacks organization, and I love that. I love when former players are still part of the broadcast. And
Definitely.
but this dude was unreal. I mean, you won the Cy Young in 2006. You finished second the next 2 years, and then a shoulder injury, and you're done. That's it. That's his entire career.
Yeah.
So if we stay on that finishing first and second trajectory, heck, even top 5 Cy Young for, I don't know, another 10 years, what does his numbers look like? You know, he's pushing 250, 260 wins probably. Our Ks are climbing up there to 2,500 probably, if not more. 31.1 career WAR, and the dude didn't even pitch a career. So, like, where's that number look like? So for me, this was the easiest what if for the Diamondbacks.
I agree. You mentioned somebody earlier that when we talked about the Cubs that you could, obviously not as long with the Diamondbacks, but Mark Grace, he's that guy to me that you have to talk about. Just because we've talked about the Cubs, we talked about the Diamondbacks. You think Mark Grace ever gets a shot with the Veterans Committee?
Man, I would hope so. Again, like to your point about not being able to tell the story of a decade without somebody, it's I know steroids kind of overshadows the 90s, right? Let's call a spade a spade, right? But I mean, Mark Grace, we got 2,400 hits. We hit 303 in our career, and we have 4 Gold Gloves. And we're at a 46.4 WAR. That is better than some Hall of Famers in there. Yes, I would like the Veterans Committee to take a look at Mark Grace for sure. Because, again, he deserves it.
And pretty much assumed not to have done steroids. So I think you have to take that into account as far as during that era, the guys who did it the right way. He seems to be one of those.
Yep.
Interesting case there. Oral Hershiser, one of the first World Series I really locked in on as a kid was 1988. And Oral Hershiser at that point was everybody wanted to be Oral Hershiser. If you were playing out in the yard, you were a pitcher. You were Oral Hershiser. You were the Bulldog. I remember when he left the game being surprised that he's probably not going to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, you just kind of thought this guy's on that track. He'll always be remembered for that World Series. And the shoulder problems got to him, but I thought he was a surefire thing when I was a kid. Kind of a tragic ending there as far as the shoulder reconstruction and just, he actually pitched pretty well in the '95 World Series for the Indians, though. I mean, people forget he was still around at that point, so he kind of came back. He was still the Bulldog. He pitched well in that series, but just not quite enough. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy where, like, kind of to your point, like when he ended, you're like, yeah, we'll see him in the Hall in 5 years, right? It just kind of seemed like a layup. I know the numbers aren't necessarily quote unquote sexy, like I've said before, right? 204 wins. So for that time period, 204 wins is low, right? 150 losses. I'm still taking that win-loss percentage any day of the week. The 58 and a third scoreless inning streak, Sanchez was going after it this year, fell a little bit short, so it's still Hershiser's. That's insane to go that long without giving up a run. Again, this is a guy that I don't necessarily – I mean, I guess it's a what if, but it's also a ultimate borderline for me too. I could probably put it in both categories as a borderline / what if. Because if the shoulder is in good shape, does he do enough to get in? Probably. Yeah,
you look at after 1989, 89 he had a 2.31 ERA. After that, his ERA was never lower for a season than 3.46. Several 4 ERA seasons. So you do wonder, had he been healthy, if he could have done more. I think he still accumulated, 56 B WAR. So, I think if he stays healthy, I don't think it's even a question at that point. I think he's in.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Chris Bryant, what an interesting case Chris Bryant is. And I think this was a good choice here. He has an MVP award, 4-time All-Star. He struggled with various issues, including a degenerative lumbar disease. So, super interesting case, Chris Bryant. He's definitely going to go over 2,000 hits without the injuries. I don't know if he quite gets there, Nick, with a healthy career, but he's definitely going to be in the conversation.
Yeah, this one is so hard for me to project. But again, this was kind of a product of who else would I pick from the Rockies? I couldn't really think. Right. I mean, Tulo could have been in there. Cargo maybe a little bit, but Chris Bryant to me was the slam dunk here because of the back. As soon as we signed the free agent deal to go to Colorado, we haven't played. Talk about costing an organization, their future. This was the first time the Rockies signed a huge free agent like this in franchise history, and they absolutely got torched, like Anthony Rendon to the Angels, right? Rockies just got torched by Chris Bryant, and it's not Chris Bryant's fault, right? He's just got the back issue. But, I mean, every year you're hoping, does he come to spring training? I think it was a couple of years ago, we had to laugh. He actually came back for spring training, and in live BP, he gets plunked. And I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me.
Right.
The guy has been on the shelf for 2.5 years, and you drill him in live BP. Come on now. Yeah. And it's just, it's hard because he had the Rookie of the Year. He's got the MVP, like you said, wins the World Series with the Cubs, comes over and, he earned the free agent contract, and then just nothing. You've gotten nothing out of this guy, and it's heartbreaking for him, heartbreaking for Rockies fans. And you can laugh all you want, man. Their fans are diehard. They love the Rockies out there in Denver. They love them.
They show up regardless. They show up at that ballpark. Yeah. I think they're very passionate about it. And it is a shame that team hasn't been good more often than what they have, for sure.
Yeah, but this one definitely set back the organization big time.
For real. Yeah. So I believe this is going to wrap it up, but an active player, I believe, other than Trout, maybe our only active player.
Yes, I believe those are the only two. Yep.
So Fernando Tatis Jr., you talk about falling off a cliff. Two players this year I would think of. Him is the second one. He is the second one. First one is Cal Raleigh as far as falling off a cliff. But Tatis was it early June before he hit a home run this year? I think. Which is just
It might have even been after the All-Star break, to be honest. It was late.
Crazy. Yeah, crazy. I mean, I would have put this guy on that trajectory. And now, probably not so much. And again, motorcycle accident, broken wrist. PEDs, that's going to hang over you regardless of what you do after that. The PEDs are always going to be there with voters, at least in this era. So, interesting case here, Nick, with Tatis for sure.
Yeah, this one was, again, another kind of lack of who else would I choose from the Padres. Listen, I mean, the Padres have just kind of existed out there in San Diego for their existence, really. I mean, other than the Tony Gwynn years, what else do they have to really celebrate, right? I mean, so for me, it was more of a question where, I also didn't want, we have a lot of injury guys on here, and I'm like, well, this could be a different type of what if. So let's throw this in here and see how people are feeling about PEDs now, right? Which, it's all the same. But so even if he comes out, Jason, and he bumps his career average to 300, he gets to 450 home runs, and he gets the 1,600 RBIs and has a 55 career WAR. Does he go to the Hall?
I mean, look, we can't project out how voters will feel 20 years from now, right? Fair. So there is a chance. But if you ask me right now, the way the atmosphere is, I'd say no. I mean, I think it's still a huge stigma. Or if it wasn't, we would see Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and all those guys would be in. Rafael Palmeiro, they would all be in the Hall of Fame. So in the current environment, I would say no. 20 years from now, I don't know. I mean, there's a chance that in a couple of years, Pete Rose is in the Hall of Fame, and I thought we might not ever see that happen. So you never know what's going to happen down the road. But right now, I'd say no, he's not in.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I just don't think he doesn't necessarily have the personality to be in either. I don't know the guy personally, but as we know, the Hall of Fame is not about what you did on the field. It is gentlemen's club now. Like,
Yeah.
we like you, you're in. If we don't like you, sorry. Try again next lifetime.
I think you can overcome that if you're great. And I use Juan Soto as an example of that. Juan Soto is an asshole. If you just judge him based on his attitude, but the dude is one of the great hitters in the game. He'll be a Hall of Famer. So I think you can overcome it if you're really, really great. But if you're borderline, yeah, you can hang it up. If you're not popular with the media, you can hang it up. It's not happening. And Barry Bonds is a good example of that. If he had been more well-liked by the media, maybe he's still not in because of the steroids, but I think he's a lot closer than he is right now because not only are the steroids hanging over him, but also they just don't like the guy. They just don't like him.
Which is why I think the voting process is broken to begin with. But again, that's a story for a different episode. But
definitely, we have so many subjects for this, and it's probably a good thing with the looming labor strife next year. We've got plenty we can talk about if there are no games being played. Let's get us out on this, Nick. I just want to ask you this one question. Of this list that you put together, which is a fantastic list, if you were given free reign by the commissioner of, well, I guess he doesn't control it, by the National Baseball Hall of Fame, they said, Nick, you could choose one guy from this list regardless and make them a Hall of Famer. Who's your choice?
Oh, God, Jason. What kind of question is that?
I'm putting you on the spot, buddy.
Oh, that's hard, man. Longevity-wise, I think I have to give it to Oral Hershiser.
Yeah.
But for me, oh God. I think I'm torn between a couple here. Hold on. You put me too much on the spot here. I'm thinking I might lean towards Johan Santana. I think he might have the best case where it wouldn't ruffle as many feathers. Oral Hershiser has the 18 seasons, right? And I think people would celebrate him going into the Hall. I think that's my number one. Johan Santana right behind it.
I think that's a great choice. I wasn't thinking about him, but when you said it, yeah, great choice. Just sentimentally, I would go with McCutchen. If I could put one guy in just for the sake of, hey, this is a good guy who deserves to be in, I'd probably go with McCutchen. But Santana's a great choice. Numbers-wise, I think it's hard to beat him. Hershiser also on my list, but yeah, that's a great choice. See, you did a great job. I put you on the spot, and you came up with a great answer. Yeah, that's what you do, Nick.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. But yeah, man, this was an absolute blast. I love that you're kind of doing that and you're kind of peeling us off one by one, and just to have like a one-on-one conversation. I think it's incredible, and people will love that.
No, this is the third one. They've all been super fun and just great conversation. You guys are the best at talking about the game, and can't wait to do the All Mets episode with Rob. That's going to be fantastic. But no, the great stuff, Nick. Really appreciate you coming on, man. And good stuff. I mean, that's a great list you put together. Like you said, I'm sure you got a lot of grief for some of the choices, but I can't argue with any of those choices, man. Really well done.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, folks, I'm going to get us out of there on that. Tune in to Clearing the Bases every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time on X. You can find us on my page, Bullpen Sessions. I'll stream it live there. NYMLB Talk. You can go to Facebook as well and find Nick and his buddy Harrison on Rounding Third. So many great options. Lorenzo with Big League Takes on X as well. So we just have a lot of fun talking ball. Join us on Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern live. And in the meantime, guys, we'll see you at the ballpark. And everybody have a great week. Thanks, Nick.
You're welcome. Thanks, Jason.